As of 2004, General Sani Abacha was said to have been the fourth most corrupt leader in the entire world in the past 20 years. During his term from 1993 to 1998, he was said to have embezzled over $2 billion to $5 billion. And the funds were scattered throughout many different countries like Switzerland, UK, USA, New Jersey, and many other countries. And as of 2018, over $1 billion was returned from Switzerland. In 2020, $308 million from New Jersey. In 2023, $150 million from France. In 2024, $330 million from the USA, all embezzled during the Sani Abacha's rule. Hi there, and welcome to the Pass Unlock. I'm called Van Pride, and on today's episode, we are going to be talking on one of the most corrupt and ruthless president in Nigerian history, Sani Abacha.
He terrorized the country. He bullied the country. He had power. He had no authority. He was able to torture. He was able to kill. He was able to take hostages, but he never governed.
Before we dive into this episode talking on General Sani Abacha, how he rose to power and became Nigeria's seventh military ruler, and how he embezzled over $5 billion, we need to further talk about his early life, where he grew up from, and how he really rose to power.
The interim national government is hereby dissolved. The national and state assemblies are also dissolved.
General Sani Abacha was born on the 20th of September 1943 in Kano, in Benue State. He was born into a Muslim family, and at a very young age, General Sani Abacha enrolled and got admission into Nigeria's military training college in Kaduna. And in 1963, at the age of just 20 years, he was commissioned as a second lieutenant. In 1966, he was promoted to a lieutenant. From second lieutenant in 1963, he served 3 years as a second lieutenant. He was then promoted to lieutenant in 1966, and in 1969 he fought in the Nigeria Civil War, and after his fight in the Civil War, he was then promoted to a major, and in 1972 he was then promoted to lieutenant colonel, and in 1975 he became a colonel. He then served as colonel for over 5 years, and in 1980 he was then promoted to a brigadier general. And during his time serving in the military, Sani Abacha took part in many coups. Mind you, Nigeria had transitioned from civilian rule to military rule, and that was after the January 15th, 1966 coup, which led to Major General Johnson Oyegi becoming the president of Nigeria. And ever since the first coup in 1966, transitioning the country from a civilian rule to a military rule, there were so many other coups that followed in the country. One of the major coups that brought General Sani Abacha to the limelight was the 1983 coup, which permitted Buhari to rise to power as the president of Nigeria. And after the 1983 coup, Sani Abacha was appointed and became the member of the Supreme Military Council. Mind you, like I said, Nigeria was under a military rule, so the military council was responsible or in charge of taking major decisions in the country at that time. And in 1984, Sani Abacha was promoted to major general, and about 1 year into his service as major general, there was another coup in Nigeria, the 1985 coup, which permitted Ibrahim Babangida to become the president of Nigeria. Sani Abacha served a very pivotal role in the 1985 coup that made Babangida to become the president. So after the coup, Babangida appointed Sani Abacha as the chief of army staff. And in 1987, Sani Abacha was then again promoted to lieutenant general. And after about just 3 years as serving as lieutenant general, on January 1st, 1990, Sani Abacha was then appointed the Minister of Defense. And on October 1990, he became a full 4-star general under the Babangida government. Babangida at that time was trying to return the country to a civilian rule. Like I said, after the January 1966 coup, the country then became under military rule. So for the past about 20 years plus, the country was under military rule. All their presidents were military commanders or general or military members. So Babangida was working towards transitioning or returning the country to civilian rule. So that was one of the major things Babangida was working towards achieving. And yeah, in 1990, he approved he approved the creation of two political parties, that is the SDP and the NRC. And the person running for who was to run for president, or who was running for the president in the SDP political party, was Moshood Abiola. I would like you all to take good note of that name because he's going to appear or resurface a lot of times in the future. And the person, or the politician running in the NRC political party, was Bashir Tufa. The both men were businessmen running for president. And as Babangida was planning to transfer the country to a civilian rule, he then appointed an organization, a body that would be in charge of the elections. That was the NEC, the National Electoral Commission. And elections were made elections were meant to take place on 1991, even though the official date was not released, but they were meant to take place on 1991. But based on the delays by the NEC organization, the elections were then shifted to June 12, 1993. And on June 12, 1993, there was a perfect, peaceful, and non-catastrophic election. Moshood Abiola won the election with 58.36% of the vote, and having over 8,341,309 votes. And Bashir Tufa had 41.64% with 5,952,087 votes. Despite the fact it was a peaceful and non-catastrophic election, Babangida cancelled the election. He said there was election malpractice and bribery that took place during the election. Many people believe it's because he never wanted Moshood Abiola to become president or take over the country. So Moshood Abiola's followers then caused riot and strike all over the country. And on August 26, 1993, following intense national and international pressure, Babangida resigned as president of Nigeria. He resigned due to political crisis caused by the annulment of the June 12, 1993 presidential election. And Chief Ernest Sunekan took over Ibrahim on June 26, 1993 as the head of the interim national government. Mind you, after Chief Ernest Sunekan took over as the head of the interim national government, Sani Abacha was the Secretary of Defense at that time. And Chief Ernest Sunekan his rule only lasted for about 82 days before he was forced to resign on November 17, 1993, following a coup by General Sani Abacha. After the Sani Abacha coup, he then went on live television to justify his actions. He said Chief Ernest Sunekan and Babangida were unable to rule the country during unrest. Mind you, there was unrest in the country in 1993 due to the annulment of the June 12, 1993 elections. And on June 12, 1994, Abiola came on live television and announced himself as the president. Mind you, like I said, Abiola was the one who won the June 12, 1993 election. Almost 1 year after winning the election and the elections were being cancelled, he came on live television and said, okay, he was a winner and he is the true president of Nigeria. After he declared himself true president of Nigeria, he then fled into exile. He went into hiding, and Sani Abacha assigned his arrest. And after fleeing for a couple of days, Abiola was arrested on the 22nd of June. Abiola was then sentenced to 15 years in prison. But due to the unrest in the country, Sani Abacha stepped in and reduced the sentence to 4 years in prison. On September 1994, Sani Abacha placed his government above the jurisdiction of the court, which literally gave him absolute power.
The two political parties are hereby dissolved. All processions, political meetings, and associations of any type in any part of the country are hereby banned.
During Sani Abacha's rule, a man in the Oguni tribe called Ken Sarawiwa created a movement, the MOSOP, the movement for the survival of the Ogoni people. His reason for this movement was to stop the pollution of their land, the Ogoni people. At that time, Nigeria was one of the Africa's biggest oil suppliers, and a lot of companies, a lot of foreign companies were mining oil from Nigeria. So the Ogoni people where was a location where there was a lot of oil there, and a lot of mining companies were mining oil from their land. But he brought up this movement to stand against the oil companies, because they were busy polluting their lands, they were busy extracting oil and polluting their lands without having any return, without developing the tribe. So King Sarawa founded a MOSOP, the movement of the survival of Ogoni people, to fight against these big oil companies who are polluting their lands without any returns to them. And King Sarawa was moving up and down with his movement of over 50,000 people. They were holding protests from one location to another, crying out loud for the government to hear them and come to their aid. But the government did the opposite. They arrested him, and after he was arrested, he was sentenced to death by hanging. And on November 10, 1995, he was hanged to death. And one of his during the time he was being executed, the last words that came out from his mouth were, "Lord, take my soul," but the struggle continues. After his execution, there were so many questions all around the world. A lot of countries or officials were not really happy about the fact they executed King Sarawiya, and then caused Nigeria to be suspended from the Commonwealth of Nations.
By banned. Drugs trafficking and other economic crimes such as 419 must be tackled and eliminated.
During Sani Abacha's rule, he was said to have embezzled over $2 billion to $5 billion, and he made sure he scattered the money throughout many countries in the world, including Switzerland, UK, US, France, and many other countries. And in 1999, 1 year after his death, Enrico Munfrini, a financial specialist, was assigned to return all the money Sani Abacha had embezzled during his rule from 1993 to 1998. And in 2018, over $1 billion was returned from the Switzerland. In 2020, $380 million was returned from New Jersey Island. In 2023, $150 million was returned from France. In 2024, $330 million was returned from the USA. And as of 2026, over $3.6 billion embezzled by Sani Abacha during his 5-year rule has been returned back to Nigeria. Mind you, 6 years after Sani Abacha's death, that is in 2004, he was ranked as the 4th most corrupt leader in the world in the past 20 years. But despite all the corruption, Sani Abacha also helped to develop Nigeria in one way or the other. That is, in 1993, as Sani Abacha rose to power, Nigeria had a debt of over $36 billion. And in 1998, after his death, Nigeria's debt was dropped to $27 billion. He also increased the foreign reserve from $494 million in 1993 to $9.6 billion in 1997. And inflation rate also dropped from 54% to 8.5%. And also, he also made sure oil prices were cheap. That was at that time, oil was selling up. At that time during his rule, oil prices dropped to about $15 per barrel. General Sani Abacha died on the 8th of June 1998, and on the day of his death, he had 3 daughters with 7 sons and a wife. He died at the presidential palace, and his body was buried within less than 24 hours without any autopsy, obviously because of his religion. He was a Muslim, and Muslims don't keep dead bodies for more than 24 hours. And after he died, General Abdulsalami Abubakar took over power as Nigeria's president on the 8th of June 1998, the same day Sani Abacha died. And on May 29, 1999, Abdusalami Abubakar made sure he returned Nigeria from military rule to civilian rule. Please, I would like you all to share in the comment section what you think about General Sani Abacha. I mean, he was one of the most corrupt leaders in Nigerian history, but he also helped develop and advance the country in one way or the other, like dropping their foreign debts and also increasing the foreign exchange reserve. So I'd like you all to share in the comment section what you think about General Sani Abacha, and if there's anything I missed out in this video, please share in the comment section what I missed out. And please, if you like videos like this, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on your post notification to get notified anytime I post a new video. This is the Past Unlocked, and here we share the stories of the past.